I call this May 3rd, Oconee County Board of Education work session to order. First item of business is to approve the agenda, and we need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Burgess, Mr. Ransom, all those in favor? Passes 5-0. Next, we have superintendent's report. Dr. Branch.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Hargo. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight and send special congratulations to our board chair, Mr. Tom Odom, who is celebrating the birth of the first grandchild, and Margaret Odom. So congratulations, Tom, on your being a new grandfather. Couple of things tonight, board members, we'd like to just point the community's attention to, and your attention is, and many of you left and had the opportunity just here recently to help us celebrate our 30 retirees. We had retirees from all walks of life within our organization, from our bus barn to paraprofessionals to clerical staff to teachers, and thank you for attending and helping us celebrate those outstanding educators. I want to thank our partner, Georgia United Credit Union, for generously sponsoring that reception for our staff and welcoming those families, as well as OCAF. What a beautiful venue. Lots of great artwork up. If you're a community member listening to this, please stop by OCAF and check out the artwork. And they reminded me to let you know that everything in there is for sale. So, except the table. I've apparently purchased the table. I know. It is National Teacher Appreciation Week, so very befitting for us to honor our retiring teachers today to start the week off. And I know there are a lot of great things taking place around our schools from our very supportive community partners and parents. Saw lots of wonderful tweets today, social media posts of all the outstanding things that everyone's doing. I know the board appreciates our staff as well. You demonstrate that on a regular basis. So thank you to our outstanding teachers for the great job they do every year, but especially this year. You know, I tell them very often when people congratulate us for being in school for as long as we have, that, you know, job number one is to have a workforce that is willing to come to work and support students and do what is necessary, and our teachers certainly answered that call, as did our other employees, and so we appreciate them so much. It's a busy month, and so we're also appreciating our speech and hearing professionals this month, and so we celebrate our speech and language pathologists this week. Friday is also School Lunch Hero Day, so if you haven't had school lunch in a while, stop by. It's changed quite a bit. My personal favorite is chicken and waffles. So lots of good things that they did not have when I came through. But we want to thank those tireless workers. Many of them have perhaps been working as long or as tirelessly as any of the professionals in our organization, because they immediately pivoted to feeding students remotely, worked all summer long, and are preparing to assist in similar fashions this summer. So Wednesday, May the 12th is School Nurse Day. So again, another group of individuals that you'll remember a few years back, we did not have nurses in all of our schools, and thanks to the support of our board, that's just a standard piece of what we do operationally now. And we did not know then what we know now, experiencing this pandemic, but the ability to have them on site as medical professionals each and every day has been tremendous. Quite a few things to celebrate, so I apologize for the length of my comments, but keep on the good news. We have 4 Georgia Scholars, which is a prestigious designation from the Georgia Department of Education. These 4 students, which I'm sure we'll recognize at a later date, 3 from North and 1 from OC, will have a special seal on their diplomas for being honored for achieving excellence in our school community. There were only 5 Georgia Scholars in Northeast Georgia, and 4 of them are in Oconee County schools. You probably have seen this as well. Both North Oconee and Oconee County High School were once again named to some of the top high schools in the nation top 5% viewed by U.S. News and World Report. So we always enjoy being on that list and seeing the academic achievement of our students. Speaking of our students, North Oconee High School senior Embry Williams was named the Regional Star Student. So I believe a perfect SAT score. So I don't think you can get higher than that. And that's proven to be true. Embry's planning to attend Columbia University. I think if you add Mr. Toole and my SAT together, we get into the 4 digits. But Embry's going to attend, Ember is going to attend Columbia University, and she chose her AP chemistry teacher, Nick Mayhew, as her star teacher. So again, look forward to celebrating those outstanding individuals. 5 Oconee County students are finalists and 5 are alternatives for the Governor's Honors Program, which you know is a residential summer program for gifted and talented high school juniors and seniors. So probably we'll be hearing some of those names as we talk about star students and others next year as well. I want to thank our great partners again, Bank South and Oconee State Bank. Each of them have recently fully funded a REACH Scholar. And so with the help of their generous donation, they funded OC middle school students, or Oconee County middle school students, and they'll receive up to $10,000 scholarships for a Hope-eligible Georgia Scholar. And so partly the state commitment there, partly local commitment. And so one of the things that we work with our partners to do is try to allow our students to have one sponsor if possible. And so we'll have one student that has a Bank South sponsor, one student that has an Oconee State sponsor. We have 4 of those, and so we'll continue to be working with our partners to solidify that. But we're thankful as we stand here today, and I want to thank Beth Parks for her work on that, that we are fully funded for another year for REACH Scholars. Dove Creek art teacher Karen Phillips won the National Art Educational Leadership Award from Artsonia. So again, excellence all the way across the board. We had 4 students win the Regional Youth Georgia Authors Competition, with one, Knox Thornton from Oconee County Elementary School, winning the state competition. So wonderful achievement there as well. We've had 31 secondary state level science fair award winners, with one student, Michelle Lee from North Oconee, advancing to the international competition. So achievement in all areas there. We also had North Oconee senior Valerie Vieth won an award of excellence for Georgia Department of Education. So lots of outstanding awards. From a team standpoint, it's been quite the spring, as you probably have seen on social media. So far, we've had in region championships just in the spring, North Oconee's baseball, their girls soccer, their boys tennis, their girls tennis, gymnastics won both the area and the state, I believe. And literary was the state champion as well. Girls track and girls lacrosse were also region champions. Oconee County High School also had literary region champion, boys and girls tennis, boys and girls soccer, and girls track. So if it'll ever stop raining, a lot of those individuals are trying to continue to compete and represent our school system, and they're doing it in an outstanding fashion. Last thing that I have is the information before you for next year's board dates. This is the normal time of year. Next week we would take action on those board dates. You'll see the work session and regular sessions listed out. They are traditionally the first and second Monday, but the board does make some adjustments for holidays and educational leadership experiences that our staff take part of. We've also, if you'll review these dates, board members, we looked at January, December, June, and July. Those are months that historically we do not have a lot of board action that is necessary, and so taking the charge to continue to try to be as efficient and responsible with your time as possible, we believe that we can attend to the board business with one regular session meeting in those months. So these will be before you for consideration, and recommendation for approval next week. And that will conclude the superintendent's report. Unless there are questions.
Thank you, Dr. Branch. It's wonderful to hear the academic and athletic achievements of those students that you mentioned. Next on our agenda is presentations and discussions. First is Teaching and Learning Report, Dr. Claire Buck.
Thank you and good evening. The May Teaching and Learning Board Report contains 2 items of information and 2 action items for the May 10th regular session. The first item of information is an update on the distance learning model for this quarter, as well as some plans for addressing learning recovery. Currently in our elementary schools, we have 178 students that are participating in distance learning. Secondary, we have 347, which overall equates to about 6.3% of our students that are in distance learning. So we've really seen that just about cut in half from the beginning of the school year. We're very excited. We've been working on plans to offer some summer learning opportunities to support learning disruptions due to COVID-19. We'll offer a series of summer learning experiences designed to provide students the opportunity to participate in positive learning and engage in various activities. The summer learning opportunities will target important skills that will be essential for students' readiness for the next grade level. At the elementary level, we're offering several different options to support learning. First, the Summer Bridge Camp will provide targeted learning interventions in both reading and math. These will be for the elementary students that have shown the greatest need for learning recovery. It will be a combination of in-person and virtual. It will be held at Malcolm Bridge Elementary School. And the next event or learning opportunity that we are planning is the Summer Explorers. And this is a virtual learning support and monitoring for elementary students that need some additional time. So it'll be a combination of them having some online resources to be closing some gaps and getting proficient on skills that are needed, as well as some monitoring from those teachers and providing some virtual conversations with the students along the way. Finally, at the elementary level, our elementary students will have the opportunity to participate in a summer independent program. We will be providing, as an opt-in option, summer bridge books for students that want to have some continued practice during the summer. This will be kind of a spiraling review of the current grade level standards, as well as some previewing of the next year's content. Middle school students that are not meeting grade level standards, we're going to be focusing on reading and math. They will attend daily sessions in person, and this will take place at Malcolm Bridge Middle School. Also, at the middle school, we are going to be providing a middle school summer camp, which will take place on July 31st, and that will be for our rising 6th grade students coming into middle school for the first time. It'll be available for new students coming into the county, as well as students that will be transitioning from the distance learning environment to the in-person, and we hope that this will provide a very solid, smooth transition for those students into middle school. Our high school students will have the opportunity to participate in the regular summer sessions that we always provide, opportunities to retake a course for credit recovery or to extend a course that they are currently not passing to earn that credit. We do have one additional activity that is new for our high school students. This particular opportunity is going to be our high school summer slam program, and this is for rising 9th graders for students that are transitioning from distance to in-person, as well as new students to our community. This will take place at both high schools. It will be a 2-day event on July 21st and 22nd. And once again, just a great opportunity to provide a solid transition for those students to meet teachers, meet other students, learn the layout of the building, learn, kind of some of the standard operating procedures. The second item of information is an update on the recent Georgia Future Educators Signing Day, and we have some really nice pictures here of that event, and I'm very excited to report we had 26 students that have made that commitment to continue a career in education. The first action item is our student Chromebook warranties. We posted a request for proposal on March 4th and closed on March 31st. The superintendent's recommendation for the May 10th regular session is to approve Virtucom as the provider. They did provide the lowest bid and also meet all of the goals that were set forth in the RFP. The second item of information is the CTAE local plan and grants. This is an annual item that we bring to the board. The superintendent recommends for approval. These are both federal and state grant funds that support the continued improvement of our CTAE program. And the recommendation is to approve the local plan at the May 10th, 2021 board meeting. And that concludes the report, unless there are questions.
Any questions?
From the elementary and middle school summer programs, the children are identified then, are they just invited to attend, not required?
Right, they'll be invited, and we have several different tiers of, we'll start sending invitations out this week, and if we don't get responses from some, we'll reach back out, and but yes, there will be an invitation.
So some students will be invited, I guess, based on what's gone on through the school year and the assessments by the teachers that maybe these kids need a little bit extra help. Conversely, can some parents who think that on their own just think that'd be a good experience and it'd be good for my child to maybe get involved in that for the summer as well? Can they sort of self-select themselves in, or is it only for the ones that get invited by the teacher based on
That's a great question. It's primarily for the ones that have been identified that we provide those resources for. If we do have parents that want some additional instruction or support, we'll work with them individually to determine what is appropriate.
Are we kind of limited to the scale or size of what you can accommodate in this program for the summer?
There's the piece of getting teachers to do, and we have had an excellent response. I'm so excited that we do. We have identified excellent teachers that are going to be able to, but we also want to keep it at a reasonable class size because it's going to be very individual focused and targeted.
How the elementary and the middle school programs you described, how long do those go on? How long do you anticipate those going on through the summer?
So the dates for our elementary program is July 28th. June 7th through 24th, which is the 3 weeks, Monday through Thursday. And then there will be virtual sessions that follow that up, which is June 28th through July 15th. And the middle school will be June 1st through June 17th.
One other question on the warranties. Or what we're doing, we're I guess the machines that we bought came with some warranty, but I guess that's expired and now
That's
we're
correct.
extending that warranty for a couple more years.
That's
for
correct.
this person. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everybody. The Oconee County Schools Operation Division May Board of Education report contains 4 items of information and no action items. Our first item of information is our energy report, and the March energy report shows an on-trend decrease in usage over February. Our second item of information is our lead custodian report, and as you can see on the picture up top, we were at Oconee Elementary this past month for our lead custodian meeting, and we really appreciate them being hospitable. Our third item of information is our construction update, and just to let you know where we're at, I wanted to talk a little bit about Column Ferry, and there's a few differences in Column Ferry. We have proposals that are coming in this week that will be due. We'll begin reviewing those proposals. Once the review of those proposals are complete, we will then go to the city of Watkinsville for our permitting and for soil disturbance and things of that nature that we would normally go to the county with. Since Column Ferry sits inside the city limits, we'll have to go to Column Ferry for the same process that we would do with the county in previous years. The only difference is we'll have to go to the city council on May 19th. Myself, Fred Rickerson, our director of facilities, and our architect and engineer will go to the city council meeting. We'll go before them, show them our soil disturbance plan, approval the next day, and then we will bring that to the board in June for your vote. And that's the differences that we'll do for Column Ferry from an RFP standpoint. One other construction update, our North Oconee High School lighting project is complete. So that is done now, and we'll be able to put that to bed. Our fourth item of information is our bus ridership. And as you can see up there, our bus ridership continues to go down. What I mean by that, that's the lowest total I've seen yet at 18.72% change from the previous year. With that being said, that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
On the Column Ferry project,
Yes, sir.
have we gotten pretty good interest
Oh, yes,
on the
sir.
number of bidders so far?
12.
12, so you're expecting to get as many as 12 different bids on that?
In all honesty, Mr. Tim, there'll normally be probably between 6 and 8 bids or proposals.
Yeah.
But what happens, we had 12 people actually come to the pre-proposal meeting, which is a very, very high number. A lot of interest.
Okay, cool. One other question.
Yes, sir.
I've read some recently that the county apparently is back with discussions about potentially doing road modifications this summer in front of the middle school of Apple Ridge.
Yeah.
Have you had any conversations with the county construction staff about that work or the intention to do that and where all that might go?
No, sir, not since way back when. So
I mean, not recently.
no recent conversations about it, no, sir.
So they've not approached you. They haven't approached you, Jason.
No, sir. We're not aware of any formal action that's been taken. I read some of the same information you have, but I think our review is no formal action has been taken, no communication.
So nobody has come to you and talked about, okay, we're back to talking about maybe doing that work this summer, like they were proposing last summer.
No, sir.
You know, our former board member, Wayne Bagley, was very involved in that discussion and knew a lot more about that project than I certainly did and understood the implications of it. And he was always pretty adamant that the proposal that was being made at the time was going to create a lot of traffic that was still going to require some help from the sheriff's office. Jason, I know we're speculating because we haven't been, no information has come to us from the county that they're actually doing this, so we're kind of using third-hand speculative information. But do we know if the sheriff's office is still sort of where they were months and months ago, that if we, the school system, were to ask for their help in dealing with traffic in front of any of our schools, that they would still respond in a positive way and react to that?
I believe I know the answer to that, but I'm going to defer to Dallas because he communicates on a regular basis, and I know he's consistently talking about traffic and plans for next year. So, Dallas, would you mind addressing that?
Yes, sir. They are. We're continuing to look at this year, next year, and all those things, and they continue to say they want to walk beside us through that, and we'll evaluate any road changes and what perhaps might need to be happen from a safety standpoint, and they're certainly willing to help us make sure that's a safe entrance and exit for our students and families.
Okay, so the sheriff's office is still open to, still willing to say, we'll help in any way you ask us to help from any of our schools.
Yes, sir. They're helping with us with that, along with a number of other things with regard to safety. We're constantly evaluating that.
Well, maybe I'm raising something that's not an issue. We're 3 weeks away from school. So you would hope that if there was anything being seriously planned in front of that school, more than 3 weeks out, we would have already heard about it. So maybe it's a non-issue and there won't be any more conversation about it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Just stay put.
Next,
That
Student
worked
Services, Mr. Dallas LeDuc.
Segue. Good evening, everybody. The Student Services Report contains 2 items of information and 2 action items for the May 10th meeting tonight. The first item of information is our school nutrition participation. You'll see when compared to April of 2019, we're up, getting close to 3% there, which is good. The second item of information is our COVID-19 update. We continue to have conversations with the Department of Public Health and stay engaged with them. Right now, they haven't updated any changes to the guidance from the Department of Public Health, and have assured us that they would let us know if they do. So we'll continue to monitor that. I know there's been some changes from some CDC guidance, so sometimes it takes a little while for those things to match up, but we'll continue to move forward with our mitigation plans to close out the school year. Along those lines, I do want to thank our partners in the vaccination again. Before the end of the school year here, we have vaccinated approximately 800 of our staff members through our partnership with Piedmont Athens Regional, as well as the Oconee Health Department. And that's just a great example of our community really wrapping our arms around us and making sure that we're able to show up to work every day and serve our kids like we all want to do, but it takes all of us. And there's been several instances of folks stepping up in the community to assist us with that. And this is the latest example. And I do want to point out that the Georgia Department of Public Health, as you know, reports the rolling average of new COVID-19 cases daily on their website. And we, in Oconee County, we've been below 5 on that average since March 30th. And we haven't had a stretch like that since we started the school year. And as a matter of fact, today it was reported for Oconee County as 1.6. So just wanted to say thank you to our community partners here tonight. And I want to say thank you to you all as well for empowering all of us to be able to make those relationships and do what we need to do to serve kids and serve them safely. The first action item is a field trip for Oconee County High School. The girls basketball team would like to travel to Greenville, South Carolina this summer to compete at the Furman basketball camp. The second item of information is the North Oconee High School field trip. That is the North Oconee wrestling team would like to travel to Greenwood, South Carolina to compete in the Landers University wrestling camp. And that concludes the Student Services Report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Dallas, I noticed today that the University of Georgia, I guess based on something they had gotten from the CDC or DPH or both, had made some changes in the way they were planning to hold their commencements. Because they were still talking about 3 different days, so they're spreading them out and doing something different than they were going to do. But I noticed they were making some changes. Are there any changes that you talked about or looked at to the way we're going to conduct our 2, or are they still pretty much set like you have them?
Yeah, right now our plan is to move forward with the amount of people. We have made that change to 8 tickets per graduate. And we've also ordered additional seating to place on the field to give folks an opportunity to spread out as much as they need to or feel comfortable doing. But right now, our plan is to continue forward with the 8 tickets per graduate on the 21st and 22nd.
Do you guarantee in 2 beautiful nights of weather those times?
I'll have to look at that and get back to you.
Better than tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Business Services, Ms. Sarah Ann Sharp.
Good evening, board members. Business Services has one action item for the May 10th regular session. Board members, this is a look at the FY22 tentative budget that will be placed for your consideration at the May 10th regular session. So as we go through this, continue to look at it, and if there's any adjustments that the board desires, please work with the superintendent to make these adjustments. The total available revenues for the FY22 tentative budget is $114.9 million. 38% is state revenue of $44.1 million, and 62% is local revenues of $70.8 million. The local sources consist of local revenue of $42.3 million and a beginning fund balance of $28.5 million. The local revenue for the tentative budget is $42.3 million, which is 49% of the revenues. Ad valorem taxes of $39.2 million, or 93% of the local revenue. This is an increase of $2.9 million over the FY21 budget. The estimate is based on a 7.61% tax digest growth. We have other local taxes of $2.5 million, and they make up 6% of the local revenue. These taxes are real estate transfer taxes, intangible taxes, and titled ad valorem taxes, which you hear me call TABIN a lot. And then there's $600,000 or 1% in other local sources, and these are for some Medicaid reimbursement we get for services provided to children, facility rental, and some interest and some E-rate. State revenues for the tentative budget are $44.1 million, or 51% of total revenue. The primary source is QBE funds, or $42.8 million, which is 97% of the state revenues. The final state budget did include a 4% cut to QBE funding, which was nearly $2 million to our state revenue. We will also receive nearly $900,000, or 2% more of the state funding, and this is some funding that goes toward our nursing and transportation programs. And then we'll receive $367,000 for our career tech and ag programs. So this is the history of the tax digest. We've had a steady growth since tax year 2014, and the FY21 budget is built on the tax digest value of $2.488 billion, which is a 7.61% increase over last year. And here you have the history of the fund balance. The fund balance helps to manage the growth needs and any unforeseen circumstances of the school system. And the healthy fund balance does demonstrate the good fiscal responsibility by the board and the superintendent. So the FY22 tentative budget has total expenditures of $85 million. 91%, or $77 million of the budget is allocated for salary and benefits for all personnel. 9%, or $7.6 million is allocated for operations of the school system, to purchase diesel, internet access, instructional resources, and other things similar to that. The tentative budget does have 7 new positions for growth. We have 1 special ed teacher and 6 regular ed teachers. I want to thank the board for their continued support in allowing us to allocate and hire these new positions ahead of any kind of final approval of the budget. And 78% or $61.3 million of the tentative budget is geared toward instruction of students. A small amount, $18.7 million or 22%, remains for support services. This is for the administration of our schools, hiring of our employees, upkeep of our buildings and grounds, transportation of our students, and other support services. And so this is a breakdown. It's a look at the expenditures that are directed toward the instruction of our students. 72% or $62.4 million of the tentative budget is for instruction. And this is the classroom. These are your teachers, your paraprofessionals, any kind of instructional resources that are used in the classroom. $2.7 million or 3.1% is for pupil services. These are your nurses, your social workers, and your psychologists. Another $1.2 million or 1.4% is for improvement in instruction. This is professional development for our teachers and curriculum development. And you have $1.1 million or 1.3% that's for educational media, and this is for the media centers of all our 11 schools. So the FY22 tentative budget is a conservative budget. Divisions were asked to keep their budgets flat, and I do want to thank them for all their hard work in not increasing their budgets this year. And so here you have a look at the FY22 tentative expenditures compared to FY21. The 22 tentative budget does include 7 growth positions for $652,000, eligible step increases for employees $815,000. There was a slight increase in the TRS employer rate this year for $450,000. We do have $288,000 for technology purchases. This is the first time that we have included technology expenses, and they help us meet the needs of our student growth. And the board wanted to recognize the outstanding efforts of our staff. So the 12-month employee work days are modified from 245 days to 240 work days. This is no cost to the system, and the employees will not receive a salary adjustment. So in addition, this tentative look provides more revenue than expenses. So what the board may have desires to prioritize other items. So the FY22 tentative general fund budget has a beginning fund balance of $28.5 million, revenues of $86.4 million, expenditures of $85 million for an ending fund balance. Also in the budget summary that you have, there's some unencumbered expenditures of $10.5 million, bringing the fund balance to $19.4 million. Future considerations are our student growth. Our student population does continue to grow. This year, many school systems experienced a loss in their student enrollment, but we did receive some growth. The local tax digest has experienced a steady growth over the last few years. Capital outlays, our summer projects begin. General funds may be needed to assist with our capital outlay program. State funding, the governor did restore 60% of the state austerity cut. However, the budget did have a 4.2% cut to state funding, which was nearly $2 million. The employer TRS rates did increase a little bit this year, $450,000. And the employer health insurance rates, these rates have remained stable over the past few years. So that concludes my presentation, unless there are some questions.
I understood that you said we had more revenue than expenses,
Yes, ma'am.
and we certainly do want to recognize that our teachers and staff have had a very difficult year, so we could possibly consider doing some kind of recognition or reward for them.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if any of y'all want to discuss that, but I think that's something that we should consider. The final budget has to be passed when?
The tentative budget will be brought to you at the May 10th work session. We will have hearings and advertise this budget between now and June. It will be brought back for final adoption in June.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the fund balance. You talked about a healthy fund balance. What's a good number that makes us attractive for going and getting bonds on future building?
Yeah, they certainly do look at our fund balance. I don't think we would want the fund balance to necessarily drop below 23%. That keeps us from ever having to borrow money to get through the summer months. But the state law, does say 15%.
So we're in pretty good, we're in a
We're
sweet
very
spot.
We did get our bond rating. I will tell you, because of our healthy fund balance, that was part of our strong bond rating that we got before.
Any more questions?
I'd like to ask a couple if I could.
Yes, Mr. Odom, go ahead.
I know it's a little early. Can you give a round ball figure of what fund balance might be this year? If it's a plus or where it's going?
We predict, we estimate right now that the 21 fund balance will end at $28.5 million.
For the year?
Yes,
For
sir.
the year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know we're using some blended funds in our capital building for years with state tide funds and utilized local. So from this, so there's enough money that, let me ask this question. The state of Georgia, in returning 60% of the austerity cuts, they did not allow for pay raises, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. So if we, and I want everyone to know, I'm all for appreciation of the staff, particularly in this. So if we were to say, for example, to give bonuses or what have you, it could be done out of this fiscal year or next fiscal year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And if we give pay raises, none of the people, if we give pay raises in this next fiscal year 22, the 30 people that were recognized tonight or those that moved away, they would not receive any of that. Is that correct?
Well, if the board desired for those 30 people that were recognized tonight to receive that, we could structure it where it was paid in July and they would receive that.
Well, I would favor bonuses, but that's just me. And I would go along with whatever y'all deem the right amount in this program. But I would, I know that the staff is receiving $1,000 in CARES money, already has, I believe. And if that's the case, I would love to add on some more, as a one-time reward. And I want to make sure that those that were here this year receive that. But if we do a pay raise, my feeling is in the next school year, that involves TRS as well as new teachers who were not with us receive a pay raise as well. That just doesn't have a fair feeling for me. So I want to do what's right. I think we need to recognize I think it's all good. It's a good problem to have. If it is a problem, it's a good decision. Some good decisions there. So, anyhow, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think I have a little disagreement on that. I certainly do want to give bonuses or something if possible to those 30 people we recognized this afternoon that are retiring. But I personally, as a retired educator, would like to see a 2% raise. And the reason I say that is when you do get ready to retire, if our employees got a 2% increase, that would help their retirement, where a one-time bonus would not be reflected when they go to retire. So that's the way I'm leaning, just to let you know. Mr. Burgess.
Sarah, let me ask a couple questions about the summary you got to make sure I understand. The budget cut that the legislature cut the budget last year to begin the fiscal year, and we took, what, $4.5 million out of fund balance
Yes,
to
sir.
balance this current budget to avoid cutbacks, furloughs, all the things that we didn't want to do, right?
Yes, sir.
And they've yet to put all that back. We got some of it back this year, but this budget for next year still assumes almost a $2 million cut to in essence our fund balance, correct?
Yes, sir.
At the bottom, you're showing the fund balance broken out into two groups. An unencumbered expenditure balance and a fund balance number. What's the unencumbered expenditure number? What's in that 10.4 million? What's the assumption behind that?
It's for some of our capital outlay, and then also the opening of Dove Creek Elementary School.
Okay, so you didn't have it on your future consideration sheet in terms of opening Dove Creek, and we know that's going to be a multi-million-dollar expense when we finally get there in a couple of years or so. So you're sort of accounting for holding that money to assure that when we open Dove Creek, we've got the millions we're going to need to open that. The rest of it is for capital projects that are included in our ELOS list.
Yes, sir.
Were those projects also included in our estimates for what we're going to need to sell bonds for?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're kind of covering it these are my words, we're covering it in both ways. We're setting some unencumbered fund balance aside, but we're also selling bonds so for the assurance that we're going to have adequate money to construct the various projects that we've put into our capital plan over the next 4 or 5 years with this new ELOS, correct?
Yes, sir.
Back to Tom's point about the salary increase. The legislature didn't approve a salary increase for the school system in the budget they passed that starts July 1, correct?
Correct.
So they didn't put any money in the budget to pay for any type of salary increases over and above the bonus that they covered that's already gone out to our school system employees this year, correct?
That's right.
So any salary increase that is considered for next year would be totally funded with local tax dollars with no state allocations attached to it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And my understanding of the way the state budget works, that's the way it will always be. If we do a salary increase, it's always going to be the local tax dollars that are used to support that salary increase, because the legislature can always assume that that's not in their base. They didn't approve it. That was a ancillary decision to their funding allocations, and they're not going to then come along next year, the year after, and say, "Oh, we'll fund that decision that you made on your own." Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we've gotten some of the money back that we put into our fund balance for this year, but we're still short. We haven't got the rest of it back. But we've also gotten a better digest this fiscal year than we were anticipating. You know, your estimates for the current fiscal year were appropriately conservative, and obviously the local digest did better than that. So we've actually collected more revenue locally this fiscal year than we were anticipating in our budget allocation when we approved this last summer, correct?
The digest grew about what we projected it to grow.
But the combination.
The other local taxes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If I'm right, it's about $1,600,000, $1,700,000 in additional revenues that we got this fiscal year over and above what we had budgeted for and allocated for, that are now gonna flow to us as this fiscal year closes out and would otherwise go into our fund balance.
Correct.
Correct? Well, then I'm kind of where, well, let me back up. One of the principles that I always followed in all my years of budgeting at the state level, with state agencies that I ran, and even at the University of Georgia, was a concern about using one-time revenues to fund continuing obligations. Now, you take that and then attach the notion that the legislature is likely never to fund a pay raise that we ourselves give, that they haven't participated in, and it's just an extra burden on the, it's a continuing extra burden on the tax digest and in our local revenues, as opposed to the opportunity that seems to me to be in front of us to take the additional revenue that we got this year that we weren't counting on because the economy and the digest did better, and use that in this fiscal year to reward, recognize all those things that we've talked about, the great work that the school system has done this year to make the system, to make this year work. And I just think it would be a more fiscally prudent approach to take those revenues and do something with them to reward, as opposed to build into next year's budget a continuing obligation with continuing revenues from the digest that we will always be responsible for without the state's participation. And the fact that, as Tom mentioned, it gives us the opportunity to do that maybe now as school closes out, as an end of the year recognition of a job well done, great, use all the adjectives you want to use, but a way to recognize that. And so I'm more inclined to want to do something with those revenues that we collected this year to adjust and recognize, as opposed to building a continuing obligation into next fiscal year and beyond that will always be there without any help. So that's just my personal perspective on different approaches to maybe trying to reward and recognize the great work that the whole school system has done this year.
Any further discussion?
I feel like we've got a pretty healthy buffer in our general funds. Said that as long as we're by state law above 15%, we've got a high bond rating. How much buffer do we have to maintain that high rating?
How much buffer, percentage wise or dollar wise?
Buffer or percentage wise? I guess what I'm asking is if we do.
I mean, I guess I should have answered the question a little bit. I don't think your bond rating is going to be as high as if your fund balance is 15%.
Right.
I think they're looking for something that's healthy, where you can handle unforeseen circumstances, like if your state funding gets cut by $4.5 million. We're very fortunate that we did have a healthy fund balance, and so we could handle those unforeseen circumstances. They will ask questions in the bond ratings, where do you see your fund balance going? They like to know, are there any kind of one-time expenses coming? They want to know if it's going to remain stable there, and that you are able to provide payments for bonds in case things do happen and your sales tax collections decrease.
I think to Tim's point also, Michael, the bond rating company is going to review what expenditures we know we're having and look at our overall fund balance. That's one of the reasons we encumbered those costs to show that and demonstrate that really you're at that kind of 23% sweet spot that Sarah Ann has talked about, that ensures that we don't have to take out cans to make payroll when we're not collecting the property taxes. So that's why we set that aside, if you will, to help them understand. And as we talked about in our ELOS combining those resources to be able to do that. So we think we're in a good financial position. I'm encouraged by the fact that the board wants to have a conversation around rewarding staff. Thank you for wanting to have that conversation. We think we're well positioned to respond, as the board, sees fit. I believe is what Sarah and I have talked about in terms of going forward.
Can I ask one more question, please? Sarah Anna, if we were to do the bonus out of this year's budget, and the austerity money that we would have in this next year's budget, if the state gives a 2% raise, as we expect them to do, as the governor has said he wants to do, that fund balance could be used to shore up what we would our part, because the state doesn't pay for the entire pay raise. So it would help us to kind of transition into the next budget as well. Would that be right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll just say, this doesn't work.
I think our mics are tired like the staff.
Maybe it's saying I don't need it. But, yeah, I love the idea of a 2% raise, and I understand Kim's point. I think that's fabulous. But upon thinking about it more, I just think if we're trying to accomplish rewarding this year's effort, which in my mind has been Herculean, it's just been phenomenal, and I really want to make sure those that were here and did the work see the benefit of that. And I understand Tim and Tom's point of not continuing that, not having something that I just think that's a separate issue maybe, but needs to be what we're really trying to accomplish, is rewarding that, and how do we go about that versus just a pay increase.
Well, it sounds like from the discussion, everybody believes there should be some kind of a bonus or some kind of a pay raise. And I don't profess to be an expert in finances. My philosophy at home is if you don't have the money, you don't write the check. So my question to Sarah Ann